Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. To summarize what we have studied till now, a human being alone has the choice of action. And the choice of action implies he has to choose acting through the mind or acting through the intellect. Since he has the choice, he is responsible for the consequences of the choices that he has made, that one makes. And then we went on to see what is this mind and what is this intellect, the importance of intellect, the uniqueness of intellect. The uniqueness, importance of intellect is because of this factor. So, and then we went on to see the definition of what mind is and what intellect is. Having done all this, we did some practical applications, as in how does one know the current state of mind, as in the diagnostic tools, the mind and the intellect. In relation to that, we saw a few tests. The first one being the chart, objectivity versus impulsive, OA, OB, OC, OD, OE, the chart. And then we went on to see the three states of equilibrium. Now we are going to see the last diagnostic factor concerning the mind. And then there is one more in relation to the intellect. So today's session, we are going to see the diagnostic tool, one more in relation to the mind only. And the tool reads, ungoverned mind modifies into negative emotions. The ungoverned mind, if you look at the chart, it says the ungoverned mind modifies into negative emotions. The central point of it is the desire. The starting point of it is not the central one. The starting point of it is the desire. A desire comes with a few possibilities. In the definition of the mind, we saw mind is made up of desires, emotions, impulses, etc. First, we will understand what is a desire. Desire is a driving force behind action, seeking fulfillment, happiness, contentment. That is desire. Again, I define desire. What is desire? Desire is the driving force behind each and every action, seeking happiness, fulfillment, contentment. To put it very simply, desire is the way in which the unhappy mind is seeking happiness. That is desire. The unhappy mind is seeking happiness, and that method by which the unhappy mind is seeking happiness is called a desire. And then as soon as the desire enters into the personality, forms into the personality, a few things happen. the few possibilities arises. What are the few possibilities? The first possibility is the desire can be suppressed. There is a desire and you can suppress the desire. One can suppress the desire. When the desire is suppressed, it turns into a frustration. Frustration leading to mental agitations, intellectual delusion, and self-destruction. Some of these words, we put it in red color because danger, isn't it? Red because these are all dangerous. That's why it is in color red. Otherwise, we don't use red. Just here we are using it because just to give some flavor. It's dangerous. So desire, the possibilities of desire. Number one is suppressed. You can suppress it. Now, whatever be the reasons for suppression, we are not discussing the reasons for suppression. If the desire is suppressed, that suppressed desire turns into a negative emotion of frustration, and frustration leads to agitation, confusion, self-destruction. Another possibility with the desire is disappointment. When the desire is unfulfilled, there is a disappointment. So this frustration and disappointment is very straightforward to understand. Disappointment is easy to understand. Frustration is also very straightforward to understand. What is a desire? Looking at it from another angle, desire is nothing but raga and dvesha. And in all the lectures, in all the commentaries, Swamiji keeps saying, the entire Vedanta philosophy revolves around these two words, raga and dvesha. Raga, dvesha. The whole philosophy of Vedanta, the whole knowledge of life and living and understanding revolves around these two words and proper understanding of these two words, known as raga and dvesha. Raga means wanting something that you don't have, which you believe will give you happiness. That's called raga. Wanting something that you don't have and having it makes you believe that you get happiness. That is raga. So raga is the desperation to want something is raga. What is dvesha? Dvesha is a desperation to get rid of something. So if you analyze in life, either I am desperate in wanting something or I am desperate in getting rid of something. So I want something desperately is called raga. Dvesha is wanting to get rid of something desperately. This is called dvesha. So whole lifetime you understand that there are only these two things, raga and dvesha. The intensity differs. Sometimes you will be more intense. The intensity of desperation varies, but raga dvesha is desperation. Are you okay till now? I'm not trying to use many technical terms to explain. I'm trying to keep it simple. So, wanting something and wanting to get rid of something. And the most complicated thing is, at one point of time, you will be desperate to want it. At another point of time, you will be desperate to get rid of it. That's where life is very confusing. You don't know whether to keep it or to get rid of it, because at one point of time you desperately want it. At another point in time, you desperately want to get rid of it. So, irrespective of whether you are having it or getting rid of it, what is the result? What is the end result? Mental agitations, intellectual delusion, and self-destruction. And what you want and what you want to avoid drives actions. And what is that action? The action of acquisition and enjoyment. Act of acquisition so that you can enjoy that acquisition. And this also differs. And this also differs. At one point in time in life, you want wealth, you want to acquire wealth for different purposes. At different stage in life, you want to have a wealth for totally different purposes. At 30 and 40, you want to acquire wealth for yourself, for your family, for your children, for your grandchildren, etc. The moment you turn 60, 70, 80, you want wealth only for the medical bills. So you want wealth, you want to have, you want to save enough for the medical bills, because nowadays they say, hey, you catch a common cold and go to the hospital, 20 or 30 years of your savings is wiped out. So you want to acquire and you want to enjoy. This is called desire. The methodology by which you want to acquire, the way by which you want to enjoy is known as a desire. And this desire, if it is ungoverned, turns into negative emotions. That's the thing. Desires per se are not turning into negative emotions. This you have to carefully follow. He is not saying, Vedanta is not saying desires by itself turns into negative emotions. If desires per se will turn into negative emotions, inner wellness and all doesn't happen. Because anyway, desires will be there all the time. And by itself, if it is converting into negative emotions, then what is wellness then? Therefore, it is not the desires per se that turns into negative emotions. The ungoverned mind modifies into negative emotions. Now we are working backwards. Wherever there is a negative emotion, we understand that some desire is ungoverned. Some desire is unchecked. Some desire is unmonitored. By what? That answer we know already, isn't it? Because that much brainwashing is done. Puneet, at least theoretically you can say. What is it? Intellect. Ungoverned, lack of it's not guided. By what? That answer you know, by the intellect. The question is, what happens if the intellect is not governing? So that you can understand the modifications. That's what we are discussing. Of this, two we saw. What are the two? When desire is suppressed, it turns into frustration. Frustration leads to agitation, depression, destruction. And the mistake that people make is don't suppress, indulge. Because since suppression is causing frustration, what is the method to avoid the frustration? Enjoy. That is, fulfill your desire. Enjoy means go and fulfill your desire. For there is nothing wrong with the desire. Go and fulfill your desire. And then what happens if you fulfill your desire? Happiness comes. Correct? You get what you want? Definitely there is happiness. We are not there. You can't deny that. Happiness comes. Tragically, that happiness comes with the package. You fulfill the desire and the happiness comes, and that happiness comes with its own package. What is that package? That package is the bundle of negative emotions. To fulfill the desire, if you go all out and try any method to fulfill the desire, happiness comes. Along with that happiness comes the package of negative emotions. What are the negative emotions that comes when desire is fulfilled? The attempt you make to fulfill your desire, you will face a lot of obstruction. when you are making an attempt to fulfill the desire, you will face a lot of obstructions. And those obstruction causes anger. And those obstruction causes anger, and anger leads to mental agitations. I'm not, from now on, I'm not going to repeat it because it becomes too repetitive. Anger leads to mental agitation, intellectual delusion, and self-destruction. Anger. What is anger? You have a desire and you are making an attempt to fulfill that desire, and that desire faces some obstacle, faces some interruption, some obstruction. What emotion comes out of you towards that interruption? Not welcoming, not cooperating, not friendship. What emotion comes towards that obstruction? That emotion that comes towards that obstruction, wanting to eliminate that obstruction, is called anger. So what is anger? Anger is nothing but an attitude to eliminate the obstruction. That's why anger makes you destructive. Anger makes you destructive. You can observe, no, in people, in your own self also you can observe. Anger subsides after you destroy something. And there are very many ways by which people subside their anger, isn't it? You can throw the TV remote, you can throw the phone, you can crush the piece of paper, you can bang the door. If nothing is working, you can bang your head against. Some people do that. No, they go and bang their head against the wall. All is nothing but what? An attitude to destroy the obstruction. The way they crush the paper, you can see the anger. It makes you venomous. Anger makes you venomous. That anger will show in word, that anger will show in action, that anger will show in attitude, leads to mental agitation, intellectual delusion. And what is intellectual delusion? You say things that you should not say, you do things that you shouldn't do, and then you say things that you should not say, you do things that you should not do, you are affected by it, and then you regret, you say sorry, next week you get angry again. This is the cycle. Nothing changes. Next week you get angry again, and the intensity goes on increasing. Why? Because in the path of you trying to fulfill your desire, one thing that you will face for sure is obstruction, and anger is the attitude to destroy that obstruction. That's why anger makes you violent, they say. Anger makes you violent, and violence is destructive nature. You can't be a affectionate, violent nature, no. When after the war is over in the Mahabharata, after the war is over, whoever was left behind, they got reconciled, and they all went to take blessings from the uncle. After murdering the children, they went to take blessings from the. After slaughtering and murdering the uncle, they went to take blessings from the uncle. Children, they went. And he's a blind fellow, blind king. No, Dhritarashtra is a blind king. You know that story. He's a blind king. So he says, somebody standing said, this is Yudhishthira, the elder one. Dhritarashtra hugged and said, be blessed. Second, Bhima. Krishna quietly said, no, you don't go. Keep one iron statue of, keep on, not a wooden statue, an iron statue of Bhima. And they said, this is Bhima. And Dhritarashtra hugged it, and he hugged it so tightly that it turned powder. Meaning his anger was so much that he wanted to destroy it, and he destroyed that into powder. And then Krishna says, now that your anger has subsided, bless him. Anger makes you destructive. So either you will want to destruct that person directly. If you can't destruct that person directly, innocent objects becomes the innocent objects become. What are the innocent objects? Invariably, what are the innocent objects? That's why I always say, have 2, 3 TV remotes, isn't it? Because invariably, the first thing is the TV remote. And nowadays, TVs don't work without remote. So have to have at least one spare extra. You go into the house and see the number of remotes, you know what is happening in that, you know the status of the people in the house. Anger is destructive. Lot of discussions is going on about anger management, how to control anger, how to manage anger, how to control anger, how to manage anger. But sir, not all anger is bad, no? I get angry only for the right reasons, isn't it? People say, correct, sir, we agree with it, but getting angry for wrong reasons, but then we should get angry for the right reasons, it doesn't really matter whether right reason or wrong reason. Anger is destructive. Anger is destructive because you don't have a powerful intellect to be objectively angry. If you are objective, you will not get angry. You will pretend as though you are angry, because sometimes anger works. Not all the time. On few rare occasions, anger works. But even then, you are not angry. You are pretending to be angry, because that's the language the other person understands. But you have not lost your inner peace of mind. You have not lost yourself. Are you able to see? Otherwise, people say, I get angry only, when I see people violating the traffic rules, I get angry. When I see somebody doing this, I get angry. So angry for right reasons is okay, no, sir. Blood pressure doesn't know whether it is right reason or wrong reason. It will shoot up only. Therefore, anger is destructive. And what is the source of anger? The source of anger is desire interrupted, desire intercepted, desire interrupted, desires facing obstruction. The emotion that comes out of you towards that interruption is called anger. Okay, what happens if the desire is fulfilled? Somehow you have managed your anger and you manage to get what you want, the fulfillment. What happens then? Fear. The fear of losing. Having it is one, and the fear of losing it is more painful. So along with that acquisition, along with the happiness, comes another negative emotion. What is a negative emotion? The negative emotion of fear. Why it is termed as negative? What is the reason for calling it as negative? The reason for terming it as negative, the reason for calling it as negative, because you are not comfortable with it, you don't want it, and you want freedom from it. That's why it's called negative. Negative because it disturbs your peace of mind. Negative because you want freedom from that. Therefore, what happens? Fear. One possibility is fear. What is fear? It is not the actual loss. If you actually lose, you will quickly reconcile and come out of it faster. It is not the actual loss. It is more of the fear. I may lose it. I may lose it. I may lose it. And fear is about the health. The fear is about the wealth, isn't it? Now there is that fear. Be fear. I'm not saying be fearful. Huh? Now there is this fear. What is the fear? The last 2 years, almost 2 years now, no? I don't know, 1.5 years, 2 years, the fear. And the fear causes more agony and pain. What happens in fear? In that state of fear, the body is so, because of the mental agitations, the body also becomes very weak. It becomes so vulnerable. Even normally you wouldn't have catch the disease. Because of the fear of it, you become so vulnerable, and that vulnerability by default you will get it. That's why they say living in fear. Fear of losing health, the fear of losing health, wealth, the fear of losing the near and dear. People fear losing their own health, no? Headache is so fearsome, stomach ache is so fearsome, and immediately you get a headache, you get, and then everybody is doctor nowadays, isn't it? With the help of Google, everybody has become doctors. So they will type the symptoms, and the Google doctor will tell you that you are going to die with all the symptoms. There is no chances of you living, because you may be having a brain hemorrhage, you may be having this, you may be having that, and you are so confused. And then you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you a medication. Immediately you will come out and Google about that medication also. And when you read that medication, looks like doctor is not, you read everything about the medication. I'm sure a few would have tried this, no? Isn't it? You don't have to tell me yes or no, you know it, isn't it? So, and then when you read about the medications and the side effects of all those medications, it looks like the doctor, the pharmaceutical company, they all have ganged up to loot your wealth and murder you. It appears like that, isn't it? They have ganged up for what? To loot your money, and in bargain, not cure you. In bargain, they are going to murder you. So, fear of the doctor, fear of taking the medicine, fear of everything. The most destabilizing emotion is the fear. It keeps you in that state of suspense all the time. Keeps you in that state of uncertainty all the time. For no reasons there will be a stomach pain. For no reasons there will be a head pain. And you put the body through the MRI scanners. I don't know what all scanners you can put the body through. You can put the body through, and the doctor will say everything is all right, no problems. Can you say, am I imagining that? Vedanta comes and says, what is the answer now? Yes, you are imagining. What is that imagination? The fear. What is the fear? The fear is always about the unknown. The mind projects the unknown. The mind magnifies the unknown, which is what we called as exaggeration. Remember, when we discussed the definitions of the mind, one of the definitions we saw is exaggeration. The mind magnifies it, the mind exaggerates it, and this magnification and exaggeration results in fear. Another possibility. So, what we have seen till now: frustration, disappointment, anger, fear. And then, oh good, or what, yeah. And then greed. Another possibility. What is the possibility? Greed. And what is greed? Greed is a dissatisfaction with what you have and believing that satisfaction will come with the next. That's greed. Again, what is greed? Greed is a dissatisfaction with what you are having and a conviction that the next one will give you happiness. That's greed. Example, you buy a you buy a car, you buy a phone, a new model car, you buy a new model phone. In 3 weeks, the next model the company releases. The new model the company releases. The new model comes, the phone, and then the moment the new model comes, the phone in your hand looks very 80% of the things in the phone we don't even use at all. We don't even know what is in that in the first place. We don't even know what is in that. The greed comes. What is the greed? The greed to immediately go for the next. He is not saying don't go for the next. That should not be driven by a dissatisfaction, discontentment with the current one. If it is a well thought of, well planned one, it is all right. If it is needed, well thought of and well planned, it is perfectly legitimate, it is perfectly all right to go for the next. Here we are talking about going for the next out of sheer greed. Jealousy. Greed means it is jealousy. And what is jealousy? What you want, somebody else is having. That's what jealousy is, isn't it? What is jealousy? Very simple. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster, he says. Shakespeare says, jealousy, the green-eyed monster. And what is jealousy? You want something. Not only you are not having it, somebody else is having it. And if that somebody happens to be one whom you don't like, the pain is double, isn't it? Sir, me not having is also okay, sir. But that person having it is something which is, I can't digest. That's called greed. You want something, you don't have it. Not only you don't have it, somebody else is having it. And that somebody, whoever that somebody is, doesn't matter. There is this thing called jealous. Shakespeare says, jealousy, the green-eyed monster. It's monstrous. Why he calls it as monstrous? Because it destroys. It destroys. All acquisition keeps you at a point. Now the next one. I'm going to the next one. All acquisitions keeps you at a point where somebody will be above you and somebody will be below you. All acquisitions keeps you at a point. In relation to that point, somebody will be above you and somebody will be below you. What is your attitude towards those who are below you? And what is your attitude towards those who are above you? That's called those above you, it's called arrogance. Those below you, it's called arrogance. Those above you, it's called envy. How do you understand this? For one emotion, I'm giving you one example, one indicator. When somebody comes to you asking for a favor, what is the mask you put? And when you go to somebody asking for a favor, what is the mask you put? Again, I repeat. Are you able to follow what I'm saying? When you go to somebody asking for a favor, what is the mask you put? That one puts. You means not you. I don't mean anybody personal here. What is the mask one wears? The best face, isn't it? The best face, the best words, everything is the best, best, best. Because you are wanting a favor from somebody. The moment somebody comes to you asking for a favor, the mask instantly changes. That indicates the envy and arrogance. The mask that changes is an indicator of your envy and your arrogance. When I want, I have a different mask. And my interpersonal relations is very best. Nobody has to teach me how to ask. Nobody has to teach me how to put in the best friend, for I myself know how to do it. Same person, when somebody comes and asks me for a favor, what is the front I put? What is the front that a human being does? You can see it, you can see this so distinctly, no? You can see it so distinctly. All this is the ungoverned mind modifying itself into these emotions. To quickly summarize now, frustration, disappointment, fear, greed, anger, arrogance, envy, all these are nothing but mind modified. All these are nothing but the mind modified. It's the mind only modified into this, grossified into this. In Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, verses 62 and 63, he talks about these two. This is taken from Bhagavad-Gita. All that we are talking till now is taken from Vedantic literature only. I'm not referring to from which verse we took what. We are not referring here. I'm referring to it directly. It is taken from 62, 63 of chapter 2 Bhagavad-Gita, where he talks about the ladder of fall. How he talks about how a human being falls down. Fall of the human being is nothing but the mind being ungoverned. When the mind is ungoverned, the human being falls. What is fall? The mind goes unchecked, the mind goes ungoverned. That is called the fall. And it is easy to manage when it is easy to handle and manage when the momentum is less. When the momentum becomes stronger, powerful, you will be carried away by the force. And most of the time, it is so powerful that we are carried away by the force of the desire. He doesn't use the word desire, he used the word raga dvesha. As I said in the beginning, right through the scriptures, all through Vedantic literature, we'll be only using these two, raga and dvesha. The indicator now is this. See this chart. Having explained all this, what is the indicator? The indicator is this. The frequency of this, the intensity of this, and the recovery time you take from this. It is not these six alone. If it is only this six, it's different. The actual diagnostic tool, the actual indicator here is the frequency, the intensity, and the recovery. Frequency means time, repeated, how often it comes, how repeatedly it comes. That's called frequency. The second one is intensity. Intensity means how strong and how deep it is. Intensity. The third one is how much you are disturbed by it and what is the time you take to recover from this. The frequency, the intensity, and the recovery. You can put it as FIR. It's easy to remember. You can put it as FIR. FIR means the frequency, the intensity, and the recovery. So, what is the diagnostic tool here? These are the symptoms. Looking at the symptoms, you understand the disease. For it is very difficult to understand the disease directly. Diseases are understood through the symptoms. Based on the symptoms, you diagnose the disease. So, what are the symptoms? These 6 are the symptoms: anger, greed, arrogance, envy, fear, hatred, krodha, lobha, mada, matsarya, bhaya, dvesha. These are the indicators. How frequent it is, how intense they are, and what is the recovery time you take. Sometimes the intensity of anger goes over generations, no? One great grandfather would have fought with another great grandfather, and they still continue and the grandchildren, great grandchildren will be still carrying the fight, no? And they will say, we are all parampara vairi, sir. Enemies for generation. So the intensity can be so strong that it can go over generations. And people take up individually. Carefully follow now. This is where Vedanta comes in. Up till now it is it's very up till now it looks like more common sense, though it is not common sense. Up till now it looks like that. It appears to be so. Now starts the Vedanta proper thing. What is it? These are the symptoms, and what people do is they deal with the symptoms per se, thinking that they can, if they handle the symptom per se, the disease goes. Vedanta says you cannot handle the symptom per se, because the disease is inside, and another situation, another environment, anger comes. Another situation, another environment, the greed comes. I learned how not to get angry with my family, sir, but I don't know how not to get angry at my office. I know how not to get angry at my office, but traffic jam, I don't know how not to get angry at traffic jam. I don't know. So the mistake that people make is they take it symptomatic. They take it so symptomatic and they want to deal with it through symptoms. Vedanta says that is more like first aid. You can deal with the symptoms directly. That is called first aid treatment. And there are 2 types of treatment. What are the 2 types of treatment? One is the first aid and another is the proper methodical cure. You are so sick, you have fallen down, you met with an accident, the first aid fellow comes, the ambulance comes, and the person gives a first aid treatment. And the first aid treatment itself, if you say, I am satisfied, and you go back, what will happen? If you get satisfied with the first aid treatment and say, I am recovered, or I have recovered, what will happen? That's what all the worldly techniques that people talk about, Vedanta doesn't say they are wrong. Vedanta is not criticized. It says they are all like first aid treatments, and you simply get satisfied with those first aid treatments. You need what is first aid treatment helps for what? It will keep you alive so that you can go to the hospital, get proper care, and come back stronger, isn't it? But then the very first aid itself, if you say enough, what happens? This is where the frequency, the intensity, the recovery. What is the frequency of it? Frequency means how often it is. But I don't even remember, sir, how often it is coming. It's coming so often that I can't even remember how intense it is. How intense it is. Intense in the sense of what all valuable, meaningful things in life you have lost because of this. That's what intensity is. What is it? What are the meaningful things in life you lost? What are the wonderful things, valuable things in life you lost because of this not paying enough attention to the symptoms and going for proper treatment? Proper treatment is available. The knowledge of Vedanta, the systematic study, the proper systematic study, the e-learning courses. That's where at the end of the video, it comes. The e-learning courses, the proper systematic way of gaining this knowledge and strengthening the intellect. The solutions are there. Problem is not lack of solution. The problem is how to convince the people of the solution. And I'm supposed to do that in 10 weeks is given to me to convince you, isn't it? In 10 weeks, I'm supposed to convince you what? Not the solution, not to tell you where the availability is, to make you understand how important it is to go for the solution. So, the frequency, the intensity, and the recovery. Invariably, what happens? People get so carried away by either they get carried away by the first aid treatment or blame and keep blaming the external world for all these symptoms. This is the Vedantic philosophy, the truth of life. Either they blame the external world for all this: anger, greed, arrogance, envy, fear, hatred, etc. Either they blame the external world for this, or simply get satisfied with some first aid treatment where the diseases are still continuing. Through knowledge and understanding, you got to come out of it. Through proper knowledge and understanding, you got to come out of it. And what does proper knowledge and understanding means? Darkness is the problem. Carefully follow this question and answer me. If you have heard this question before, don't answer. If you know the answer, don't answer. Darkness is the problem. And there are very many ways to get rid of the darkness. Of the very many ways to get rid of darkness, light is one method. Correct? Again, I'm repeating the question. Carefully follow. Sharan. Light. Darkness is the problem. I'm not talking about spiritual darkness and all that. Darkness, normal darkness. Darkness is the problem. And you want freedom from darkness. Of the very many ways to become free from this darkness, of the very many ways by which you can get rid of darkness, one of the method is light. Right or wrong? I'm not giving you a lot of time to think. Of the very many ways to get rid of the darkness, light is one method. In what all ways you can get rid of darkness? Tell me. You can sweep the darkness away. You can you can blow the darkness away. What is the way by which you can get rid of the darkness? The only way is to bring in light. The only way to get rid of darkness is by bringing in light, and you may like it or not, you may accept it or not, you may understand it or not. The only way to get rid of darkness is by bringing in the light. That's why knowledge is equated to light. Knowledge is equated to light, and all these diseases are equated to ignorance. All these things are equated to ignorance, and knowledge is the light. So only through the light of knowledge you can get over this permanently. And throughout the world, they are coming up with so many methods to get rid of the darkness. Now, what is the darkness? The agitations of the mind. The agitations of the mind is the symptoms. Agitations of the mind is the symptoms. The cause for the symptoms is, what is the cause for the symptoms in the context of what we have discussed? Even though you may not be convinced about what we are discussing, but still theoretically answer. What is the cause of the disturbances? The ungoverned mind. Ungoverned mind is the cause for all these disturbances. Now, what is the method to govern the, what are all the various methods by which you can govern the mind? Somebody will say, breathe in and breathe out. Do pranayama. Breathe in and breathe out. Your mind will come under control. You can breathe in and breathe out. Maybe you can, maybe COVID may not come. The mind will not come under control. Another person comes and says, don't bother about all these things. Simply sit and meditate. And that will bring about a control over the ungoverned mind. Gets governed by meditation. In meditation, what will happen? Sleep will come or headache will come. Yes, definitely sleep comes, and that sleep is a peace of mind, and that peace of mind will make you to believe that your mind is under governed and control. You come out of the meditation session, take the car out, somebody comes and bangs against your car, all peace of mind is. Nobody need not bang. The traffic jam is enough to take away the peace of mind. It is like blowing the darkness away. It is like fanning the darkness away. It is like sweeping the darkness away. People don't have an intellect to understand these are all not the methods by which the darkness can be removed. There is only one method to remove darkness, and that method is knowledge. Intellect strengthened by knowledge. Another person says, all this knowledge and all that doesn't work, sir. Pilgrimage tours will help. Yeah, pilgrimage tours will help. And nowadays they started calling it as, they don't call it as pilgrimages, they started calling it as spiritual tourism, isn't it? It's a kind of tourism only. In 2 days, you have to visit 27 temples. By the time you come to the 9th, 10th temple, you don't know which one you went, and you also don't know which one you have to go next, because you are in because it's a package tour, no? 27 you have to finish in 26 hours. How can you? Please understand, we are not criticizing them, we are not condemning them, we are not ridiculing that. We are only trying to understand what is the disease and what is the problem, and how not to take the wrong medication. and how not to take the wrong medication. The ungoverned mind is the cause for negative emotions. In fact, you should not even call it as cause. It is the ungoverned mind that modifies itself into these negative emotions. It is just the ungoverned mind modifying itself into this. And since it has been ungoverned for a long period of time, the intensity of it is so strong, recovery will take time. You don't say late. You can't say late, isn't it? You can't say late because it takes some time to recover. Why it takes some time to recover? Because of the intensity. The frequency is too often, the intensity is too often, the recovery takes a long time. Now, what does intellect do? Gradually, by this knowledge, it reduces the frequency, it reduces the intensity, and the recovery is faster. This is how knowledge brings about a cure. Again, I repeat, how knowledge brings about a cure is it reduces the frequency, it reduces the intensity, and the recovery is faster. There you know that knowledge is, there you know that you are gaining knowledge, and your and the way and methodology of gaining knowledge is right and proper, and you are going in the right direction. This is another diagnostic tool in relation to the mind. And we have finished 7 sessions. We have 3 more. So we have another diagnostics tool from the level of the intellect, which I will take it up in the next session. And then what is the basic material and how to approach it, where to approach it, all that we'll be discussing in the last 2 sessions. So the last diagnostic tool to understand the intensity of your mind and the strength of your intellect is with these symptoms. These symptoms gives you an indication how much you got to work on yourself. What are the symptoms? Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya, Dvesha. Popularly, rhythmically, they will say Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya. Kama and Moha. Moha is delusion. Kama is the desire. So that's why we put both together. That's why in the chart, if you remember the chart, the first one is the desire and the last one is the moha, the delusion, destruction. In between comes Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya, Dvesha, etc. This brings us to the conclusion of all that goes in relation to the mind. To summarize for today, to summarize for today, negative emotions are those which you want freedom from. Nobody tells you to get free of that. Nobody needs to tell you get freedom from that. Every human being wants freedom from these negative emotions. And what is the source of negative emotions? The ungoverned mind is the root of all these negative emotions, and that ungoverned mind in the form of raga and dvesha. And this raga and dvesha, when guided by the intellect, when this raga and dvesha gets guided by the intellect, it turns into the positivity. So the same mind is that which turns into negative or positive depending on whether it is guided or unguided. This is the summary. The mind is the same. If it is unguided, it turns negative. If it is guided, it turns positive. So somebody says how to develop positive feelings, how to develop positivity in life. Some people will come and ask freedom from this. Some will come and ask positivity. It doesn't matter whether it is negativity or positivity. Both is of the mind. Both are products of the mind, depending on whether it is guided or unguided. Unguided, you can call it as misguided also, isn't it? Unguided can be misguided also. So whether it is guided or unguided. Guided by what? That you know the answer by now. Guided by what? By intellect. With this, we conclude the session for today. And if there are any clarifications, we will take it up. Any clarifications on what we have studied till now, we will take it up. Having painted such a negative picture, sir, what questions we will ask now? Isn't it? You said such a depressive, negative picture is being painted, and all that we want is to finish the session so that we will go out of the session first. On top of it, you are asking for clarifications also. What clarifications will come, sir? Yes, Puneet. You have some. Yes.
Yes. Good evening, Swami.
Yeah.
So are these kama, krodha, lobh, bhai, are they connected? Or if you start working on one,
yeah.
So are they like all connected and you go like one by one in thinking, reflecting about it? Or you pick up one and then work on it and then pick up second? Is it like
in
terms of priority?
Yeah. Now, how it works is whatever based on your FIR, based on that which is disturbing the most, you pick that up and you work on that. Rest gets worked by itself because all are interconnected. You need not work on one by one. I need not take anger. Managing anger is a 3-month project, and managing greed is another 4-month project. So by the time I give one emotion 3 months, in 1.5 years, it's not like that. You handle one, you know how to handle one. That's the beauty of this knowledge. You know how to handle one, you will know how to handle everything, because it's the same thing, different modifications, it's the same thing. Therefore, and why we talk about these different modifications, because different human beings will be affected by different emotions. Everybody will have all this, but somebody will be predominantly, they'll be affected by one or two of it. Therefore, you need not work on all the 6, 7. You take up one and work on that one, and if you know how to manage that one, that knowledge is enough to teach you how to manage the rest. That's why in all the talks and everything, Swamiji keeps saying 6 months of knowledge is enough. 6 months is enough. Ganesh, enough for 6 months? Yeah. 6 months is enough, he says, provided if it is done in the way that it ought to be, provided if it is done in the way it ought to be done. You learn one, you know how to handle all that. You need not work on independently each one of it, because you are right, all are interconnected.
So I have a follow-up then. So suppose today the intensity is very, very high and we are all working towards getting that next car, the next phone, maybe the next computer, and we spend a lot of time because we feel that's giving us happiness.
Yes.
If I have to take away all of my thought process time in these things, I will have to occupy myself in something else, which is the true knowledge of that happiness.
Yes.
So that means I then, and it's like guiding the mind towards the truth versus.
Exactly.
So because what I try and do sometimes, if I feel like, I'll pick up a book and start reading, so that you just have to, because either you can't sit in meditation and think,
Yes.
do nothing, but if you have to go from a negative to positive, you'll have to find what is that positive,
Yeah.
where you have to involve your mind, right?
Yes. What exactly you are leading us into the next session. That is where we say intellect by pitching up a higher goal. The mind, intellect substitutes the mind with the higher goal. It doesn't take away anything from the mind. Knowledge doesn't take away anything from the mind. Knowledge gives you a higher purpose, a higher goal. And that higher goal, you are so occupied with that higher goal, these things becomes manageable. You are right. Otherwise, I do all this work unless I am occupied elsewhere. How can I do all this? So what the intellect does by pitching up a higher goal, a higher ideal, a higher purpose to your actions, and that reaching that goal, reaching that higher ideal, the mind is occupied with, these things stops gradually reducing. So we have to positively substitute it with something else. We can't just take it away. We just can't keep taking it away. That is where I said, with this, the mind is over. The next session, the intellect and the goal and all will come in. So that what is it, that goal? How does it substitute and gives us freedom from the negativities? The higher goal. The higher goal, the circle of identification, increasing the circle of identification, the higher goals, etc., is that which the mind has to be substituted with. And if the mind is educated on the importance of that, and the mind starts following that, this grows down, this simply melts away naturally. Are you able to follow, Punit?
Yes, absolutely.
This is the POA they have. This is the plan of action. This is the POA for that. How to substitute. Come on. Okay, Punit?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anybody?
Soumya here, sir. Good evening.
Yes, Soumya, good evening.
Yes. So my mind got connected to envy or jealous immediately, because all through my life I thought I was not jealous at all. But recently, when I was doing a lot of inner work, there I identified I have envy and jealous arising out of comparison. And sir, you mentioned when someone has something and that someone is a person that you hate, it becomes all the more painful. But for me, it's the other side. If someone that I love and I envy them, that is all the more painful for me, because that comes along with guilt, shame, and everything.
Yeah, exactly, correct. Yes.
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 So when I identified this, so other emotions also came, and it was so difficult to face myself like that. So what I observed was, at the feeling level, it was there. And at thought level also, when it comes to thought, it's like I'm comparing, okay, how much I have achieved, how much she has achieved, something like that. And she has a good place to work or something like that. But when it comes to action, I have always done only good things, opposite of what this jealousy or envy. In fact, that particular person I have recommended for a job, and have always told her boss that she is so good. So is intensity relates to these parameters, or whether it is thought or feeling, I am my rating is still bad. So something like that.
Now, in this specific case, it is not powerful enough to drive itself into action. You are able to control it at the level of the action. So there is a control. There is the control factor that you can apply at the level of the action. There is the control factor you can apply at the level of the word And then there is a control factor that you can apply at the level of the thought. That's what we call it as intensity. It is intense because of your sharpness. You are able to catch it at the level of the feeling itself and not allow it to come into. So the intensity is, if it is very powerful, it will just sweep you into action. The Vega, in the Bhagavad-Gita, he uses the word Vega. The Vega itself will drive you into the action. So in your case, what you are saying is, it is there and you are able to catch it at the level of the thought itself. Didn't allow it to manifest at the level of the word and deed. All actions happens at 3 levels: the thought, the word, the deed. So you are able to manage that too, and you are aware of the thought. Here we mean thought and feelings. Synonymously. So you are aware of your feelings, but that didn't manifest into thought. Sorry, it didn't manifest into word, or it didn't manifest into action. Yes, to that extent it's not that intense, but it looked very intense to you. Why? Because all along you had an assessment about yourself, and then when it came about, it looks very powerful. It's not that powerful. It's not that powerful. If it is that powerful, you would have been swept away into action automatically. The fact that you are able to manage the action, not only act on it and also act positively, it means it's not that intense. But it appears as intense to you. Why? You answered it by yourself. All along, you thought you never had it. The fact that you became aware of it made it appear very intense. Are you able to follow, Soumya?
Yes, sir. On the same line, extended question. So in the same scenario, we were open about expressing that I identified envy or jealous, even the other person had, and it was identified and we expressed it and we thought, okay, let's work on it and then move on. But eventually what happened was, from the other side, there was a lot of action-oriented things also. Yes. Now, this has aroused anger inside me, and I had to break off that friendship.
Correct.
So now, when it comes to anger, my intensity is much more because I brought it to action.
Yes.
Or can I say, consciously, I chose to be away from some negative, because I communicated well when I did that.
The intensity is because in some you are able to dismiss it or guide it properly. Along with guiding it properly came a hidden expectation. What is the hidden expectation? It should work in the way that I have intended to. It should work in the way that I have planned it. Now the reality is I have no control over the other. Since I have no control over the other, and the other by their way of thought and action made all my good work also futile, obviously what will happen? Anger will become more. Are you able to see the sequence?
Yes.
Therefore, this is where I told, while I was answering Puneet also, I said, all are interconnected. One quickly modifies into the other. The one quickly modifies into the other. Even though it appears as distinct and different, it takes all the flavors very fast. By the time you come to the third day, fourth day for all this, you are so fatigued. You are so tired. You are so confused. You are so fatigued, not knowing which direction to go because of this. That's why in the chart, we called it as intellectual delusion and self-destruction. Because it will manifest as one and it will quickly take other forms. Like a chameleon, it quickly changes the color. If you think it is jealous, it will turn into anger. If you think it is anger, it will turn into something else. So by the time you are aware of it, you are tired. The solution is not by attending to this directly, by pitching up the higher ideal and directing the mind towards that ideal and focusing all your energies on that. All these gets reduced. That becomes a solution. One is to be aware of the problem. Another is to bring in the right solution. Is it okay, Soumya?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Did I answer? Yeah. Yes.
Navani Krishnan has posted a question.
Yeah. Yes, Sharan. The posted?
No.
Yes, Sharan.
No, Navani Krishnan has posted.
Yes, sir. So I just wanted one clarification. Thank you for allowing me to say. So is it actually possible to stay amidst the samsara life and still continue to permanently kill all these qualities which you have mentioned? Or I'm just trying to give an example. Like there is a case of a dust or a kind of thing. We cannot avoid it altogether, right? It will come after our cleaning also. There is not a permanent cure for. So in spite of all, if you give a situation like we stay in an ashrama or a complete nature surrounded thing where we are not exposed to any kind of this worldly objects, so we can still continue to remain in devotional bliss. But when we still go for offices, meet colleagues, meet peers and everything, if I attend a course or take some good actions, I can come out of this at one point. But what if it keeps cycling out and comes again and again? So I say like a dust, like a bike mirror. We can bike mirror can be adjusted once. It gets to the other portion again and again. So that's where my question.
Yeah. Navneet.
Yeah.
You go and sit in the forest, you will get angry at the lizards and the mosquitoes there. You go and sit in an ashram, you will get frustrated about something there. So first thing that we understand is by changing the environment,
we can
mind will not change by changing the environment. For if environment is the problem, solution is very simple. Environment is not the problem. The mind is the problem. So first thing that we understand is it is not the environment. It is the mind. And the best area to deal the mind, the best area to handle the mind is to be in active life and deal with it. Exactly what Krishna told Arjuna in Bhagavad-Gita. Arjuna wanted to get away from active life in order to practice all this. Krishna's advice is, that's the timeless classic advice, all-time complete advice. You cannot get away from the active life and try to do any one of these things, for it will not work. Why? Because in the new environment, because of the novelty of the situation, because of the novelty of the place and situation, 3 days it will be all right. 3 days it will be all right. I used to go to Rishikesh. In one of the places in Rishikesh, we teach Vedanta. I used to go there. We stay there for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, we stay. And people come to that place for a week, 2 weeks, they come to there and they come. So they come and ask. First day they will come and say, how long you are here, sir? I say, I will be here for 2 months. Oh, so lucky you are, sir. You can stay here for 2 months. And you know, I also do. And they're so excited. Third day, they start seeing the thoughts. It is exactly like, how does it work? It's exactly like you go and eat in the restaurant. The first meal is
tasty,
very tasty. Third meal continuously becomes
a bit boring.
Fifth meal, nauseous. You feel like fasting, isn't it? Now, it is not that they made the fifth meal bad and they made the first meal good. Are you able to follow? It's not the first meal was very good and they made the fifth meal very bad for you to feel it. The meal is the same. But this is how the mind changes. So first thing to answer your question, the change of environment doesn't change anything. Second, it has to be done, and the only places where it can be done is by being in active lifestyle. That is only, it cannot be done anywhere else. Third, if it can be done only there, instead of giving 10 sessions on online and all this, we all should have said at the very first session itself, we'll say, wake up, get up and run away. Problems get sorted out. It doesn't get sorted out. Why? Because the fourth point, environment changes, the mind in you is the same. You carry the same mind. Wherever you go, you are carrying the same mind. And that same mind, which is susceptible to all this, will find these things even there. If the mind gets attached to something here, the mind will get attached to something in the forest also. A simple story for this, to explain this. There are a group of great men of renunciation bathing in the river. In the near Kedarnath, they are bathing. And as they are bathing, a new person came and sat under a tree. Immediately, one person who was enjoying the bathing in the pure Ganges river got up and told that person, this is my tree, go and sit under the next tree. All tree belongs to the nature. But then the mind can go and develop an attachment. Even there it can develop an attachment. Are you able to follow? Therefore, the only place where it can be achieved is here. And it cannot be achieved anywhere else. Okay? How does Vedanta help us to understand our SWOT analysis? Strength, weakness, opportunities, and what is the last one? Threats. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You need an intellect to do this. You need an intellect to do this analysis. The theorem is good. The SWOT analysis is a very good tool. But a powerful mind cannot do that, no. You need a powerful intellect, a strong intellect, even to do this SWOT analysis. Is it okay, Navneet? Yeah.
And my second one is like how to come out of the recurring impact. Swami. So the thing is, once if I come out, like if I take a thing and I ensure that I don't belong, I mean, the things are wiped out, and I keep coming under the cyclical pattern. So how do I get it out of my mind? I got the first question.
Yes, it has to be directed to something higher.
Okay. So that's what you said next session.
Yes. Unless it is directed to something higher, it will be going through the same cycle again and again. The object will differ, but the cycle remains the same. Unless I pitch up something outside the circle, outside the cycle, something higher. It has to be done that way only. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last one, and we conclude for today.
Namaste,
yes.
Swamiji.
Yes.
This is on fear.
Yes.
As whatever is happening right now from past 2 years, like
Yeah.
the fear has increased. Fear of losing people, fear of losing business, fear of losing the job. All these things have increased. So,
Yes.
how at the present scenario, how is it possible to be fearless without having such fear?
Yes. Now, fearlessness comes when you accept the reality of life. Accepting and understanding the realities of life removes the fear. What is the reality of life? We are placed in a situation and we have to deal with the situation. So the way to overcome the fear is knowledge. And what does knowledge means? Knowledge gives you the courage. That's why they say knowledge gives you the courage to handle fears. And what is knowledge? Knowledge is to understand and accept the realities of life. Once you understand and accept the reality of life, fear goes out. What is the reality? There is the situation that we are having for the last almost 2 years now. All that we got to do is hearing it. I'm only making it more complicated. I got to understand it rightly and see what I could do to the best of my ability. Only that much I can focus on. Rest of the things I cannot do anything. That's how you overcome the fear. So, to put it as a formula, fear goes when you understand and accept the reality of life. When you believe somehow you can short circuit it, somehow you will be exempted from it, that's where fear comes. Unreasonable. Fear is nothing but the unreasonable mind not willing to accept the reality. Is it okay? And there is an element of life which always remains unknown. There is an element, now I'm giving you from philosophical angle. There is an element of life which is always unknown, and that unknown need not create fear. For the beauty and joy of life comes from this unknown factor only. Otherwise, it turns very mechanical. Otherwise, it is very predictable. Anything that is predictable is mechanical, isn't it? A joke is what brings a flavor to life, isn't it? A twist, the climax. Now, if it is very predictable from the beginning, how boring the movie becomes. You follow? So, life has an element of unpredictability, and that unpredictability need not cause fear. The unpredictability is that which brings the very joy to life itself. You have to see it from that angle. If you see it from that angle, you understand it rightly. Is it okay? Sarah? Yeah. With this, we conclude for today. And next week, we start with the intellect, and all the positivity we will start. Negativities is done with, all the negativities are done with today, and we will start with all the positivities.
Thank you.